glad you mentioned Ange, because obviously coming up, we have got some night fixtures, Wes. Now, I'll get this wrong all the time. We do have Fulham first, correct?
We do. Monday.
Right. Fulham is first next Monday, and I'm so glad to have Ange Ball back, because I can't watch Southgate Ball for very much longer. So, Wes, going into obviously Monday, what are your kind of thoughts and feelings?
Yeah, I think this game's going to be a tricky game. I think Fulham aren't a side to be underestimated by any stretch of the imagination. I know they haven't possibly started the season as well as they did and you know how well they did last season. I think everybody was expecting them to kick on. They've had a few problems, obviously the Mitrovic situation, some really interesting stuff going on with Willian, Paulinia's situation, obviously deadline day. But what I do quite like Marco Silva in terms of how he's got this Fulham team operating. Like, the whole Paulinho situation could have been handled very, very differently, and we could still be talking about it now. But the way he's just gone, right, it's done. That's it. You're back now. You're a Fulham player. Get on with it until January at the very least. And Paulinho, credit to him, has got his head down and you know, started to put in some really, really good performances. And you can see why the likes of Bayern Munich were linked with him. I think he's been a brilliant player for Fulham over the last sort of year or so. And I mean, last season I think it was like most tackles in the league. Yeah, so yeah, it's going to be a really, really interesting game. And yeah, like I say, Fulham aren't going to be a team that we can take lightly. I know we've got potentially a few doubts with certain players, but I'd like to think even then we have this sort of inner resilience, I think, now, which means that we can get the job done. I'd like to think that we are in that position on Monday night.
I'd like to think so. It'd be quite interesting to have a night game, obviously, on a Monday, because then we straight away have obviously that Friday game as well, which I believe is against Palace. I'm so out of the loop now. I can't remember what's going on. But it will be interesting. Like I say, I think someone mentioned it earlier. Is Johnson still injured? I mean, is there potential that we're going to see different personnel out on that wing? We're going to see Richarlison possibly in that role again?
Yeah, I think it obviously depends on the condition of the players coming back from international break. I think Brian Hill, Lo Celso should be available. Gives us a couple of extra options attacking wise. Johnson could be back. I know you were sort of crying on Twitter about Sonny. I think he's going to be all right. Kuti as well, because I think he went off early against Argentina, but I think he's going to be okay. Listen, I think if we have our strongest 11 available, we should be able to get the job done against Fulham. And I think where we're at currently as a team and as a group of players is that our first 11 is really strong. I think it's the depth underneath it. And I know we've been in that situation beforehand, but I'm hoping now that we are potentially better equipped to deal with it than what we were previously. So obviously expecting Højbjerg to probably come in for Basuma, because obviously he was a bit of a donut and got himself sent off. So I don't think it will change the dynamics too much. But yeah, like I said, I think should we have our best 11 players available, then I think we should have a bit too much for Fulham.
I'd like to think so, because at the moment, while we're on this momentum, I think it's funny because last season I'd open up with open arms, obviously having international break, but this season I'm kind of like, it's kind of stalled our momentum a little tiny weeny bit. Do you not think?
A little bit. I think it's just the feel-good factor amongst the fans. Like, we all want to watch our football team again. Like, we want to go to games as fans. We want to see this team, and that's a big credit to Ange and, you know, the recruitment team for getting in the right players, and obviously Ange doing his workout on the grass every day with his coaching team. And yeah, I think it's just a real feel good factor around the football club again. And I think Ange has been a big part of that, you know, getting everybody on side, uniting everybody. And yeah, like I say, it's one of those, it feels like at the minute, like I say, everybody wants to go to watch games. And I think I mentioned it last week. The fact we've not got that European football means we're kind of having to wait that little bit longer, and it's like the weeks become longer. So it's like, feels ages. It feels ages. It really does. And obviously, because we were the early kickoff before the international break, it's like, well, we've had the rest of that Saturday, we've had the Sunday, and then we've had like 2 weeks international. And then we've got to wait a couple extra days because we're the Monday night football. But then it's like that turnaround's a bit quick, because then with the Friday night football against Palace, which is going to be another tricky assignment.
Definitely.